What's going on, guys? Time for another Sunday conversation, Sunday podcast, Luthier's podcast. Still haven't really figured out what to name this, but this Sunday conversation, Luthier's podcast, some combination of that is working. Wanted to introduce sort of two different things today. One, I've got a subject at hand, which is, are we in the Golden Age of Luthier? So there's things that have changed in the market that make guitar building accessible to everyone. Wanted to cover that today. And then I've been reading some interesting articles I wanted to share with you and just give you guys an idea of where my head is at on things as they come up in market. The November Guitar Player magazine is marking the 50th anniversary of Led Zeppelin 2. And since we all love Led Zeppelin so much, it was interesting to read the story behind every song. And then I actually didn't realize that they had to give credits to Willie Dixon and Chester Burnett on some of the songs. So A Whole Lot of Love, Dixon got some of the credit. The Lemon Song, Burnett. And as you sort of flip through, they had to give credit on some of those blues songs. Bring It On Home, and they had settled out of court. And I don't know why I didn't know that, but as I was reading this article, it was pretty interesting. I subscribe to the Tone Quest report, and a lot of you guys probably haven't heard of this. It's been around 20 years. All the big names are sort of sponsors to it. It's one of those in-the-know guitar magazines, Tone Quest report. It's based out of Atlanta. David Wilson is the publisher. I had subscribed to this many years ago, and then I let my subscription lapse. This is their 20th anniversary issue, and they sort of pick the best articles over the last 20 years and drop it in here. Really cool, interesting story about Stevie Ray Vaughan's gear, how it showed up somewhere. We got Leslie West, Eric and the Dominoes, Hubert Slumlin. Just an interesting sort of mix of characters in this specific Tone Quest report. I signed up for 2 years, so if I see something interesting in here, I'll drop you guys a note on that. But those are the two things I'm reading this week. I thought the Led Zeppelin article was really great, and then this Tone Quest report with sort of their history of the last 20 years is pretty fun to read. All right, so let's get into the subject at hand, which is the Golden Age of Luthier. 20, 30, 40 years ago, building a guitar was sort of a secret. There wasn't a lot of good resources out there. There weren't companies sort of sharing their knowledge. You couldn't get certain things. With the advent of the internet and YouTube and e-commerce shopping, there are so many bits and pieces that you can get together that you just couldn't find years ago. And it's pretty interesting. So I got sort of three major reasons why I think this is the Golden Age of Luthier work. Number one is tools. The access to tools is unbelievable these days. You can do a CNC, hobbyist CNC, where you can do some really intricate inlay. You can actually recreate the PRS Dragon by working it out in one of the software programs and importing it and going down that path. Years ago, you would have to have done it by hand, which would have been a near impossible task unless you were some awesome inlay artist. But sort of the basic guy can create that relatively easily if you spend time in the software and learn how to use it. That's sort of number one, is the tools, CNC specifically. Also, Rigid has come out with that oscillating spindle sander and belt sander. I think all of us have one of those. I have two of them. I've had them for, I think, 15 years. They're awesome. They're one of the better tools for this type of work. You've also got Grizzly and Jet and some of the imported tools. Historically, there weren't a lot of import tools. You had to buy American-made, big, expensive old tools. Now you've got Jet, Delta, everyone bringing tools in from China, so that getting over that hurdle, investing in a shop, is not as big as it used to be. Then you got Stu Mack. They've started this business. They've grown the business. They've got every specialty tool known to man. Sometimes you're going to overpay for that stuff, but at the end of the day, it is one of the best supply houses for guitar tools. Got Philadelphia Luthier Supplies, LMII. My favorite, Guitar and Woods over in Portugal when I need, an intricate template or whatever. So that's reason number one, is all the different tools and specialty tools that you can get. If you are looking for special CNC inlay bits, I found CNC bits that are 0.22 thick, so I can do inlays and fret slots at the same time. Just couldn't find that stuff years ago. If you look at the diamond inlay or the diamond tools, diamond coated tools that StewMac sells, stuff just wasn't available. So that's my number one reason why we are in the golden age of luthier work. Number two then is all the resources that are available. If you were looking to build a guitar, there were only a couple of books available. Bob Bendetto did the Making of an Archtop book, which if you guys don't have that, that's one of the ones you need to read. Outside of watching all of us do these YouTube videos, you got to learn from the masters. Melvyn Hiscock did the Build Your Guitar, or what was it called? Make Your Own Guitar. That was a book I had purchased as well. There was a couple acoustic guitar books I got into, but if you were trying to start this, 20 years ago, you only had sort of 3 or 4 people pushing stuff out there. Dan had some of his videos for repair work, but it wasn't as easy to sort of get access to. You couldn't just sit on your computer and watch it. You had to use a VCR or DVD, and nobody wanted to do that. Now, while we're sitting bored at work, we can watch guitar videos all day. You've got myself, Brad, Crimson, Will. There's thousands of us sort of doing this stuff, and I will totally encourage folks to film your work, put it up there, show what you're learning. There's 1,000 different ways to do things sometimes, and not everyone is comfortable doing something the same way. So watching the videos is a great way to sort of figure out what is or isn't working with your builds. I'm also on a bunch of Facebook forums again. There's a DIY Guitar Builders, Amateur Luthiers, Luthier Club. There's just thousands and thousands of resources that just weren't available where you can actually learn and get into this. 20 years ago when I started, there was projectguitar.com. That's still available. I lurk there a little bit. And then there's the Music Instrument Makers Forum. And that one I think is a little bit older. And that is really for the serious guys. There's some serious conversation happening there. So if you're an amateur going in there, posting some of the basic questions, you're going to get slaughtered. But it's just great to read and learn about the different aspects to the business. And then, for myself and where I'm sort of trying to angle this channel, where I'm going is more about education and where I can do things, show you my different things, what I'm working on, how I'm doing it. And then I've got the Angelus dyes, which is my sort of specialty with the staining of the tops. But everyone has their own sort of niche, and you can learn from those guys that own that niche. So Brad is very good at spray art, and I've learned a lot from him watching some of his videos. Crimson's got the full shop and sort of the what's on your bench sort of experience that I like watching some of his videos. Will's got a whole number of stuff out there as well. There's lots of videos. Texas Toast, Matt, I'll participate in his Sunday conversations after I finish mine. I love chiming in and hearing his story. He's got a great personality, great following. And so there's just a lot of us out there sharing that knowledge that you can sort of pick up and learn on. So I stand on the shoulders of Bob and Melvyn, and then you guys sort of stand on my shoulders. And that's one of the interesting things about the luthier community is that we all like to share and we all like showing our work. I think we're all sort of introverts to some degree. I've gotten a little bit more comfortable coming out on the camera, but we all like cheering each other on, and we all want everyone to be successful. I think that's different than a lot of different industries. And it's actually funny to see some of the big companies say, we're going to be number one and we're going to do this. And it's like, that doesn't matter. The number one market share or the best selling none of us care about that. We can go out, do some research, figure out things on our own, and build some unbelievable guitars. It's interesting to watch what's happened in the business world, where Nike sort of does a bunch of runs of custom shoes, where they'll get an artist in and they'll do something specific, a short run, and sort of jack up the price on those. We don't need to see those come out of the big guitar manufacturers, because there's enough small guys that can reproduce that work themselves. So all those sort of resources and networks that we all have, all the connectedness that we want to bring to this community is out there. And that wasn't around 20 years ago. So you've got the tools, you've got the resources, and then you've got access to wood. And this is another great thing. This is part 3 for me, or reason number 3, is the access to wood that you just didn't have years ago. So eBay, Amazon, and Etsy, and all these other different places, you can get wood that you would have never seen before. Rockler and Woodworker Supply now have sort of expanded their footprint, and you can actually get wood from folks that you would have never seen before. I remember my grandfather years ago trying to find figured maple, and we're in Chicago, big market, and if he wanted to get wood, he had to buy a full bunk of wood. So, a couple thousand board feet of maple to get some of the figured stuff. And that wood wasn't sort of looked upon as good wood because it was inconsistent coloring for furniture and cabinet makers, and that wood was hard to come by. So I remember 30 years ago him going up into northern Michigan trying to find figured pieces of maple for his furniture. And I still got a couple of pieces of that stuff left. It's sort of near and dear to my heart. I don't think I have any of it up here. But you just didn't have access to that wood. And if you did, you weren't going to share where you're getting that wood from. So the guys getting the quilted maple from Seattle and the Pacific Northwest, you wouldn't share where that wood was coming from. Now you've got a guy like Derek Kimball from Kimball Hardwoods, who's got an unbelievable supply of wood that he's making available. And he's on multiple websites, Instagram, Facebook, his own site, eBay, sort of peddling some of the nicest wood I've seen in a while. And 10, 20 years ago, you just didn't have those same guys out there. Paul Reed Smith and Gibson would have a buyer, going and visiting the mills, getting their feet on the street, trying to find that wood and buy that wood themselves. Now those mills realize they can make a little bit more money selling directly to us. And there are lots and lots of different places to buy wood. And then the import market from Africa and Asia, ebony, all that wood, that stuff was never available. Now that you've got places bringing it over already, it's all available. One of the wholesalers that I use is World Timber Corp in North Carolina. Matt Westmoreland owns that place. That's where I buy a lot of my limba from, and I can buy a run of 1,000 at a time, get it shipped up here, and work through it. Wouldn't have been able to find that guy 20 years ago, but the internet and the partnerships I've created with other luthiers have allowed me to sort of get out there and do that. And then sort of the bonus one, I think, as I'm sort of running through these, is the kit market. Number 4 would probably be the kit market. You just didn't have that stuff out there years ago. You had a couple people making kits, and then China started dumping sort of the guitar kits out there, and the kits are plentiful and everywhere. You can go on eBay, spend $150, $200 and get a decent kit that you couldn't have found years ago. Once you get a kit, you want to build something yourself, you want to do sort of some customization, you have that ability to do that now. I've taken kits and upgraded them, and a lot of other YouTubers have done that as well. That's a really great way to get into guitar building, is get one of those kits and run at it. Even if you don't have all the tools, you can still build and customize your guitar. So those are some of my top reasons why I think we're in the golden age of luthier. If you guys have sort of a comment or a question, post it. I'll reply to you guys here. Some of the sort of cons to this, as everyone gets into this, is that sort of the price points will come down, or the pricing isn't consistent. I know some of my stuff is sold secondary, and it's been at a sort of the same consistent price point. I've sort of tried to manage my retails and my resell. What I've learned is that you cannot overprice your guitars. So if you're spending $10,000, $12,000 for a guitar, that's ridiculous. Some of the vintage spec stuff I see coming out is essentially more art than guitar. You're paying for a replicated finish, which I'm not sure why you would do that. Either you can age it on your own, or you can sort of play it till it ages itself, but spending all that money on an original is, I don't know, I don't like that. I don't like that. I like the original sort of run, but when you get into like the Slash 12 string where they made 125, I just think that's odd for $12,000. It just seems way off that you're getting sort of aged exactly like. You're paying more for someone to paint and age the guitar than the guitar is worth itself. So I keep my pricing very consistent and sort of level, and if it resells, I usually know about it, and I'm not overpricing my work. And then the work that I want to sort of churn quickly, I will price at a little bit above my cost. And as viewers, if you guys reach out to me, I've got stuff sitting around that I'll move because I've got too many projects I'm sitting on. So you buy a custom guitar that a guy's built and you spent X amount, will you get that back? Well, if you spent $6,000 on a custom guitar, you probably spent too much. If it's something very specific to you that you had made for yourself, then reselling it, you're going to have a tough time doing that. Gibson, Fender, they all have custom shops, and they can do that. And you'll probably save a little bit more resale value when you would sell one of those versus something else. But again, it depends on what people are looking for. Gibson, Fender, they aren't doing some of the way out there stuff, and that's where the boutique guys have picked up a lot of that sort of one-offs. The steampunk, the gearbox, lots of sort of variations of guitars exist today, and if you have a specific style or vibe you're looking for, it's out there. It's out there. There's a lot of people that you can work with to get a custom guitar built just for you. I do a lot of custom runs, custom builds for folks, and sometimes it just comes down to personality as well. So people know who I am, people know what I'm about, and I'll get a sale from that. So as you get into this, continue to sort of post and share your progress. But those are sort of my top reasons for why I think this is the golden age of luthier. As the guitar is dead, which the longer I've seen this business go, the less I sort of think that. I do think there are more guys buying guitars and gear than there were before, but I think it's just the sort of natural cycle and trend. There are a lot more Instagram guitarists than there are sort of big famous bands, but that's just sort of the world we're in, where you've got sort of clusters of people, clusters of groups that follow people, and it's just getting in those groups to follow them and interact with them. So that's my Golden Age Luthier video. If you have any comments or questions, post them. I'll get to them. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.